Hey there, guys, and welcome back to the Blaze TV podcast. It's Ed Kimberley and Stu Coles with you. And the roster ahead of the 23-24 season is complete. So it seemed a pretty appropriate time in the calendar to put some time in with head coach Danny Stewart. Danny, as always, a privilege to have you on here with us, buddy. And we're all done. We're all complete. And it's looking really exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's, you always, once you get the team completed and final pieces put together, you start getting excited and obviously when you're recruiting, you have lines in mind and power play units in mind, but, until the roster is completed, you don't finalize things. So it's good to have some time to kind of look at different combinations and things like that. So, it's good. It makes everyone's, not just myself, but everyone in the organization makes their life a lot easier knowing what the roster is at this point and, planning for the season.
Yes. And that final piece of the puzzle that we just announced in defense, Josh Burnside. And he looks like he's going to be a really exciting player for the Blaze. He had a great junior career, nice youth sports career, good first year pro as well there in the coast. Tell us a little bit more about Josh. What kind of player is he? What's he bringing to the lineup?
Yeah, he's a really good 200-foot player, like really smart player. He moves well. He moves the puck really well. I think he can contribute on both sides of the puck. He'll play, he plays special teams for us and has the ability to log minutes. So he's going to be a big piece. I think it's obvious in the last several years, we've put a big emphasis on our back end. And we've had really good back ends and decors. And I think it's been a big part of our success in the league. And, I think he, adding that last piece and, I really like our back end and we lost some key pieces, obviously with Halby and Johnson and Lashinsky, three tough guys to replace, but, with Thompson, Shearer and Burnside now replacing those three, essentially, I like what we have and, I'm excited.
Yeah, he looks like he's got a lot of speed in his arsenal as well, Stewie. And, it's really important, as we've seen, to have guys that can take the puck out of the back end. And he looks like he's going to be able to do that for us, amongst other things.
Yeah, and, I think, the more you have the ability to make plays in your own end and get out of your end, the less time you spend defending and the more time you spend with the puck. And, that's kind of how we've been built the last couple of years. And, it's worked for us.
Very excited to see him. And Stu, I guess I'll hand over to you as we can kind of, take the summer apart, if you like.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the place to start is almost at the end where we're at now. I mean, we were just talking before we hit record that this time last year was very different. You were looking for a few players, trying to squeeze in a bit of family time and a holiday as well, and it was a bit of a juggling act. Whereas now, I don't want to say feet up, but it's a little bit more relaxed and, maybe you get a bit more time to prepare. So what does August look like for you now, given where you're at with the roster?
It just allows to focus on other things earlier, planning for training camp and, on stuff and, finalizing, the information we got to get to the players. And, Keno and I work and, we do a lot of the off-ice stuff too, in terms of housing and vehicles and getting all that stuff ready and, planning trips. So yeah, there is still things to do, but like I said earlier, like having that roster completed, it allows me to kind of, I remember being in Canary Islands last year, trying to take a holiday and still needing three guys. And, I was just on my phone the whole week pretty much. And, it's nice to not have that. And, I've always been one not to jump the gun and just sign guys to get a roster complete or a spot filled. But just the way it's worked out, we've managed to get the pieces that we wanted. And, like I said, it's beneficial that we got them done in time.
Yeah. You said there, we got the pieces that we wanted. I mean, it's a tough market to recruit in, any year. But is this a sign that you're pretty successful? You're feeling good about the guys that you got, and you're looking forward to the season coming up?
Yeah, I think it's certainly a sign. I think it always helps when you've had a good season the season before, and I think, look at the guys that we got maybe from other teams in Thompson and Cozen and McNulty and Christo. I mean, maybe if we're a 8th place team or a 9th place team, those guys are maybe a little more hesitant to make those decisions to come. But I think as well, the organization as a whole, like we've always do our best. And, I don't highlight it we're not the biggest spending team, but, we try to do the right thing and treat our players the right way off the ice and give them everything they need and treat them like people. And I think that kind of echoes across the hockey community. And, when some players are looking at us as potentially a destination and they know guys that have played for us, they get good references for us. So yeah, it's kind of something that you want to build and continue doing so that, whether, I'm still here, we're all still here in 5 years or we're gone, that reputation, lasts. So yeah, it's good. It's good for these guys coming in and, college guys wanting to come here and start their career. And, we've got a few of them this year and, I'm excited for those pieces to fall into place.
And that kind of rings true a lot of things that you've said previously around, looking out for all the other little things that Coventry can do. Like you say, maybe the budget isn't quite as high as some of the other teams, but having the ability to prepare for longer, having the ability to look after the players, that must put the Blaze into a really good position.
Yeah, I know for sure. And I think, we're obviously always looking at how we're going to win now, but at the same time, we always want to look at the future. And, we've had a really good British core the last 4, 5, 6 years. And we always knew that at some point that was going to come to an end. And in the last couple of years, Ferreira had moved on and Venus and Forbesy now, 3 really big pieces. And it would be easy to say, okay, let's use that money and try to get, top end imports or maybe better quality imports. But at the same time, we know how that works in our league. And it's such a tough balance because if you go short on your depth and try to go for quality and 2 or 3 of those guys get injured, you're not in a good place and leads to more injuries. But at the same time, the British guys are so crucial to our success. And, being able to get guys like Ripley and Hopkins and Hazeldine now, keep Bray and, obviously Clem coming back with the experience, it not only helps us now, but it helps us, kind of safeguard ourselves for the future as well. And, whether we're able to retain all these guys, that's always the question mark. But I think the more opportunity we give them, the better we treat them, as we try to do to the best of our ability, it helps in retaining these guys. So, we obviously got to look at what's best now, but we also, I would never want to leave this place and leave them without something to work with, whoever can or whatever. And, you're always thinking of what's best for the club. And, with the British guys, that's certainly the case.
Yeah. And that's, a lot of that can be that balance between sort of short-term thinking and long-term thinking is true for any professional sport. There's always this, win now and plan for the future. When you were sort of sat back at the end of April thinking about the end of last season, what areas were you thinking about to sort of change for this year? And maybe what do you think the team's biggest differences will be between last year and this coming season?
Well, I think sometimes right when the season ended, it's tough to gauge how and where you're going to get better because you're still unsure of what you're going to have back and what you're going to get back, the targets that you want to retain and whether they're going to be back or not. And, I don't think it's a mistake. Maybe I err a little bit on the side of waiting on guys. And in the past, it's worked out. In certain cases, it hasn't. And, obviously with guys like Brady Norris, we wanted to give him time. I didn't want to fill his spot until I knew for sure he either told me yes or no. And, we gave guys like Quincy and Curran a little bit of time. And, through that, maybe we missed out on some guys during that time and when they decided to not come back. But I'm excited with what we refilled the roster with. And I think the balance of our team will be very similar to last year. I think we maybe have a few more guys up front that have the ability to play both sides of the puck and PK and maybe take some minutes off some guys that had some really high minutes last year. And I think we got several guys on the back end that could step up in a power play role if maybe our one or two main guys were to get injured. So I think the depth, not just the depth, but the depth and quality is there. First time ever starting with 2 import goalies and 3 goalies as a whole. And, obviously protects us back there as well. So I think the depth and quality is the one thing. And then again, like Archie and Jack and Ripley, they've got a year under their belt in the Elite League, and they're coming back now, and I'm excited to work with them again. Well, Rips again, and then Hazeldine and Hopkins for the first time, and to see how they can progress. And who knows, maybe by mid-season they've worked their way up the roster and displace somebody, and that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, it was interesting. Oh, sorry, Stu.
I was just going to say, you've touched upon a number of our talking points, and I'll hand over to Ed to take on the next one.
Yeah, you've kind of stolen all my cues for you there, Stu, in one go. It's like we've done this far too many times, and you know us too well by now. But I guess that conversation about the 2 import goalies, I mean, obviously bringing in Mickey Reiner towards the back end of last year to take some of the weight off Parvo. Both guys, we saw good hockey out of them as a result. That was probably one of the first conversations that you had with the ownership group and with Keno to say, all right, well, look, this worked for us. I think next season, the season that we run with this going forward, how do we make that happen?
Yeah. And it's, I think the league becomes, more and more of a, it's faster pace. It's more of a grind. I think these guys in this area, like, let's just, be black and white with it. I mean, like, when the goalie's got to do an 8-hour trip up to Dundee and play on a Saturday night, come back, and, goalie has a lot of movements, then he's got to sit on a bus freight. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's hard for everyone to do it, but when a goalie's doing it night in, night out, all year long, 60, 65 games, it's a lot of hockey for them. And, you have to expect them to have off nights when that's the case at some point, and fatigue to set in. And, this allows us to kind of protect them and also a little bit of healthy competition. I think, when a guy knows that he's going to be the guy night in, night out, it can be a little bit of both. Either he can embrace it and know that, and take pride in it and come every night, whether, he feels bad or not, or you can go the other way sometimes and think, well, okay, if I have a bad night, I'm still going to be the guy. And, maybe, looking over your shoulder every once in a while, and it keeps you motivated, keeps you focused. And, we're bringing Cozen in to be our number 1 guy. There's no question about that. But I think Kent is an exciting young goalie that can come in and definitely play and help us win games. And, I think he'll definitely provide some healthy competition for sure.
Yeah, no, it's interesting as well, because I think you touched on it a little bit there. There's a balance of a guy that's a little bit more established in his pro career, a guy that's had a really good junior career, showed some really good stuff in college, but making his first year pro. I think that balance feeds that split quite well, doesn't it? And certainly in the early days, I guess it defines their roles a little bit. But like you said, Stewie, the starting place in is essentially up for grabs. If Kent goes on a heater, you're not just going to sit him because Cozen's the number 1 guy, and I think that's so good for the team.
Yeah, like I said, healthy competition is always good. You don't want guys settling in and just being completely comfortable where they're at. I try to use the right terminology, I guess, and you try to avoid the word comfortable. You want guys to settle in and feel like they're a part of it, and they're a big piece and they're an important piece, but at the same time, you don't want them getting overly comfortable where they feel like, they have a bad night here, bad night there. It's not going to make a difference to their position. So that healthy competition's there. It's another guy from Will to learn off too. And at the end of the day, I know everyone, is keen for Will to get in and get game time. And, Will is for me isn't ready quite yet at this level. And, the question would be then, well, why don't we get him some minutes? We are trying, when we signed Will 2 years ago or last year, he didn't even have a team to play for, and we brought him in, and he has benefited tenfold from just facing that quality elite, hockey shots, and players day in, day out. And, he's getting better, and credit to Will, man. He does so much work away from the season, in the summertime, away from the rink. He takes care of himself. He works on his game, and he's only going to get better. And, our plan this year, he will be our number 3. He'll face those shots day in, day out. And if we can get him into some action, great. If we can't, we're certainly going to look at options in the NHL to see if we can get him some game time. So I think him just still being part of this level is massively important for him.
For sure. So I think it's pretty wise in helping, like you say, helping him develop. In terms of Cozen and Kent, though, I think, there's quite a lot of tape on those guys. We know Cozy pretty well. They look like they play the net a really similar way. They're very good on their angles. They move between the pipes pretty well. They keep a nice shape. Having that kind of consistent style, I think, is quite important to the defensive core as well, because, they're not having to adapt to 2 different guys that tend the net completely differently.
Yeah, maybe there's a little bit of that. I think the D are just going to kind of, the one thing I'll say about both of them is they're both pretty calm guys, right? And then neither of them are erratic or, flopping all over the place. And, I think sometimes that can settle the guys playing in front of you. And, Cozen's, puck ability is phenomenal. I think that's a huge help as well. And when we'll see what Kent's like, we've seen bits of it, and we'll see what he's like at the pro level. But like I said, really calm. I think Kent's quality is how he reads the game. He's positionally very, very sound. And he competes. He's a competitor for sure. And that's what you want in net. And we had that last year with Pavel. Pavel competed night in, night out, and was a pleasure to have that. So, and I think Cozen as well, he's a proven winner at all levels, and he's a battler. He'll compete as well. And, you want that from your goalie. You don't want a guy just sitting there and taking his shape and hoping pucks hit him. You want a guy that's going to, guys that are going to battle for pucks.
Yeah. Defensively, we were really good last year. We were conceding less than 3 goals a game in the league, which is pretty good. And, we've retained 50% of our blue line with Clem, Norrie, and Kukali. Not only having established guys with the Blaze is important, but there were leaders in the room as well. I think they all wore letters last year, which is crucial.
Yeah. And don't get me, our back end was a big part of our success. But I think playing good team defense, and that's maybe, mentioned earlier, what maybe might be a difference. I think maybe up front, we might be a little bit better off the puck than maybe we were last year. But, that's what we see on video and, from references and stuff. But once you put it all together, you never know for sure. But, I think that'll certainly help with our team defense and our PK as well. So, hopefully that'll help us concede even less goals this year.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit with Burnside. You talked about Archie. And we talked about Thompson a little bit as well. But the one guy we've not mentioned yet is James Shearer, and he's a guy that's won in his career. He won in the WHL. He had a great year last year in Utah. You must be really looking forward to getting the guys on the ice, seeing if those combinations that you've kind of got penciled in work together. But you've got a lot of options there, haven't you, Stewie?
Yeah, I know for sure. James is a guy that'll definitely play in all situations for us. Like you mentioned, he's had great junior career, college career, and, really good, year and a bit in Utah, and, getting him at the right time in his career and still motivated to do well and grow in his game. So he's going to be a big one for us. I think, like I mentioned, with losing Halby and Johnson, Lashinsky, it was important that we got guys that could, again, play on both sides of the puck. another key, what we haven't talked about, we talk about our back end all the time, but, you know, we led the league in goals from defensemen, I believe, last year by quite a bit. So, and that was a big contributing factor to our success. And when you're getting that contribution from your back end, and it takes a little pressure off the forwards, right? They don't have to produce every night, and, you know, from line 1 to 3 and into 4. So, yeah, that's, you know, James will be a big part of that. Like I said, I think we're getting him at a good time, and, you know, he'll be a big player for us.
Yeah, and the last thing for me on the back end, and I hope I'm right in saying this, but I read somewhere that Josh Burnside played forward largely for parts of his junior career. So, you know, obviously he's going to be a defenseman here, but it certainly gives you options on the power play, doesn't it? You can utilize him in different ways than, you know, you could do for most other guys.
If I'm being honest, I think any 6 of our top 6 guys, and even Archie's got some ability back there too. I don't think Archie will quite play PP for us, but you know, he's got some good puck movement ability, and I just, you know, being completely honest, I haven't seen enough of him in power play situations, because a lot of the video that I've seen of Archie has been more, you know, in terms of, you know, in the elite league and playing, you know, a certain role. So, but, you know, we certainly have a lot of options, and again, healthy competition. You know, if we start guys back there on the power play and they're not getting the job done, there's definitely enough ability there. And, you know, with Clem and, you know, Kooks as well. I think Kooks is the sleeper when it comes to that. You know, he's really big shot there. He sees the ice well, and, you know what, he moves the puck really well. And, you know, I wouldn't be uncomfortable with any of our guys playing the power play, if I'm being honest.
Nice. Stu.
Yeah, if we talk about the forwards for a little bit, you know, you mentioned goals from the back end. I mean, the team in league play, 200 goals was good for 3rd in the league. So obviously a good place to be. So maybe, you know, with the guys moving on, it might not be so much about improvement. Obviously, you want to improve a little bit, but it might be finding the right recipe and getting that sort of good mix again.
Yeah, and I think you know, we've had the ability to get scoring throughout our whole lineup. You know, we talked about the back end, but also line 1, line 2, line 3. You know, Rips chipped in last year. Forbesy started chipping in there, and you know, that's what we're hoping for again. And you know, when you only got scoring from one line a night, it makes it very difficult if they're not going, especially when you're on the road in tough buildings, and you have to have that balanced scoring. So I think maybe we're going to be a team that maybe scores from those hard areas a little bit more often this year. I think guys' maybe willingness to play in those hard areas will be a little bit stronger. And, you know, that's only a good thing, you know, especially on the nights where, you know, maybe the passing or, you know, things aren't clicking and need those ugly goals. And I think we'll certainly be able to get some of those this year.
And that was kind of evident towards the end of the season, that you'd got a combination of that depth. Cook, Dudek and Kirkup seemed to click when they all came together. You got all of those coming back. There's the opportunity to have them play together. You might choose to put them on different lines. I guess I've not seen how you've drawn it up yet.
Yeah, I think initially, I think they'll maybe be a little bit separated there, obviously, with the way we've recruited. We're going to start the year with JD on the wing and actually Kirky in the middle. But that could flip-flop at any point. You know, it's exciting as well. We've got a lot of guys that can play the middle as well. So, you know, that's a good thing. It gives you some versatility with the lines. But, you know, we'll start with a certain set. But, you know, we've got 6 preseason games. So I think at any point, if things get a bit stale, it's easy to, you know, that's the time to play around with things. And but you don't want to get caught overplaying it, right? You get through 6 games and you've tried every combination you can think of, then nobody's really settled in and got that chemistry going. So, but, you know, it's certainly enough time to play around with things and see what combos maybe work a little bit better.
And one aspect of having that depth up the middle, you know, last season, Marley Quince led the league in face-off wins. You know, do you feel there's almost like a natural replacement in the group coming in, or is there going to be perhaps more spread out in terms of who's taking those sort of key face-offs?
I think in terms of the key faceoffs, I think McNulty's a guy when he's solidified in the middle, like he certainly will. But Kirky came in and was pretty good in the circle when he was taking faceoffs last year, and Alicio is been a good faceoff guy at the D3 level, and we'll see if that translates into our league, and which I don't see why it wouldn't. So there's then when we need a righty, JD there, with the ability to take faceoffs on the right side when we need it, and if maybe some of our lefties are struggling. So, Cole as well. Donhauser's played some center in his career as well. So we, like I said, we've got the depth there, and Jack Hopkins has played center as well. He's a centerman, and we got that depth. So I think to answer your question, I guess I don't think there's a bona fide replacement for Quincy. Like Quincy was very good in the circle, and I hope one of the guys steps up and can be that guy, but it might be kind of face-offs by committee early going to see who maybe snaps up that spot.
And that talks to your earlier point around that you mentioned about the balance of the team. How do you feel that the team is perhaps more balanced than last year? You mentioned about the sort of the two-way game, playing off the puck. Where do you see that being a more balanced side?
Well, just from what you said, what I mean? Maybe just a little bit more responsibility on our side of the puck. And look, we play a certain style, and at times we do open up, and we like to get on offense and play on offense, and do like to allow our players some creativity in how they play, and sometimes that can hit you when you're not making good decisions on the puck. And but at the same time, I just think, like I mentioned as well, just a little bit more grittiness in terms of playing in those hard areas. I think we were a team that not that we didn't get those goals last year, but we were a team that maybe tried a little bit too much off the rush at times, and when we were forcing it, and we're dependent on speed through the neutral zone, and then that'll be a key as well. But I think when we get that offensive zone time, and we got guys that can shoot the puck on the back end, and if we're making things tough on opposing goalies, and making them play out of position and uncomfortable, I think we can add some offense to our game through that way. So, and like I said, sometimes when you're not clicking and the chemistry's not there, those ugly goals sure come up big at the time. So, I just think that's what I mean more in terms of balance, maybe an all around game rather than maybe just focusing on skill.
And the other sort of point around sort of roster makeup, I guess, that talk around balance and sort of depth stuff. You decided to go with 7D and 11 forwards. It could have been 6 and 12. How did that sort of decision come about? Was that just how the players came to you, or was it a conscious decision to go 7 and 11? How did that sort of thought process go?
Well, I think we, the last couple of years we've been protected on the back end with Forbesy, right, being a swing guy, and then when you lose that, got to kind of look at things and look in a perfect world, I would go 12 and 7, 3 goalies and stuff like that. But then you run into a situation where you're spreading your budget thin, and then maybe you don't have enough quality. So, is the balance right? We'll see. I think we're always going to be in a situation where we're missing a little bit of this or a little bit of that. And, I think every team will probably say that once they get it. I don't think they've ticked every box, but I think, having that depth and quality and depth on the back end is necessary, and still having 11 guys up front that you can go to is key. And, whether we got to roll a guy in every shift to run 4 lines, and, it gets some other guys that maybe earn some more ice time, some extra ice time. Right. And like I mentioned, that's why it's crucial that we've got the guys that can play up the middle, and, like Cole Donhauser or JD can spot in on a double shift with Jack and Rips to start, or, maybe somebody on the wing that maybe hasn't got as much time that game, they can get an extra shift here, shift there, and spotting in with those guys. So, it's an ability to reward guys with extra ice time as well. And, it allows allows us as well to, Jack and Rips, every time they go out there, they're going to be going out there with a top 9 guy rather than maybe, bringing another young Brit in or another cheap, import in or something like that maybe is not quite there. And those are the guys you're rolling. So that's a bit of my thinking, whether it's right or wrong. See?
Edward.
Yeah, I guess a similar shape to the question, but not in terms of the numbers and forward numbers, but in terms of the age of the roster, because we're around 26. I think we're the second youngest roster as it stands so far. Similar to how Stu asked about that makeup of the side, did that just kind of happen naturally, or did you think actually we maybe want to be a little bit younger and maybe a little bit hungrier by default?
I think this year it just came naturally. I don't think there was intent, because we've been a pretty young team in the last couple seasons. I think it just was, I just think naturally it happened that way. And, at the end there, we were, when Christo became available, we were looking for a right-handed guy, a high-end skill guy. And, I liked his experience, a bit of an older guy to maybe add to the younger group. So, like I said, it's we've been young the last couple of years, so there was no intent at the start of summer to say we got to get younger this year, because I think in the last couple of years we've certainly been young enough.
Yeah, for sure. Talk to us a little bit about Christo, because he's got some great experience. He's playing some of the European elite leagues, and if you go back and look at last year and you watch a lot of the Sheffield Steelers last year, every big game they played in the cup, in the league, in the playoffs, he was popping up with goals. He was making the guys around him better. A really big signing that maybe flew under the radar a little bit in some circles.
Yeah, and you know what? I think we've got a lot of hardworking skill, and that doesn't mean that those guys aren't. That's maybe a terminology that can be taken out of context. But guys that have skill, that work really hard and go to those hard areas and stuff like that. And when we were looking at that last spot, me and Keno kept talking about, we could really use a right-handed guy there on the power play, and a guy that has good high-end skill that can kind of create those plays out of nothing and, step up in the big games and be that difference maker. And, we seen that at times with Danny last year. And I like the fact that he's experienced the league now for a year, and, he knows what to expect. And because, guys coming for the first time, especially guys that have played in higher leagues in Europe, they're used to, we're probably the only league in Europe that has our type of schedule, where everywhere else are Tuesday, Friday, or, Wednesday, Sunday, or whatever. They're playing 2 games a week, but they're spread out. They're going the night before. So when you get here and you play 5-6 games and you're enjoying yourself, and then all of a sudden you got to go up to Dundee for a Saturday night and then make your way back down for a Sunday, an early game on Sunday, it kind of catches guys off guard a little bit, and then now, it's with that experience, it's an understanding of how to take care of your body a little bit better, the importance of cooling down and mentally as well. You got to kind of fight through that mentally as well. So I think he'll be a big player for us, 5-on-5 power play. He's going to help us create offense, and, and certainly with his age and a younger group, needs to be a bit of a leader for us as well.
Yeah, that actually kind of takes the words out of my mouth a little bit, because with guys like Luciani, Roth, and Donhauser making their first years in pro hockey, having that kind of guy around is going to be key. Although Roth played last year a little bit, actually, and he's not a guy that we've talked about yet on this, Kobe Roth, but went to a great school. He was on a really good team with Florida before he got traded over to Kalamazoo there. What kind of player is he, Danny? Because he looks like he can. I don't want to just bang the drum on this point again. He's a 200-foot guy that certainly seems like he's got some offensive upside to him.
Right. I'm really excited for Roth to be a part of our club. I think he has the ability. He'll certainly start in our top 6, and I think he could work his way up the lineup. And he Minnesota Duluth is such a good organization and program in the States, and he won a couple of national championships there, which is big. Those are hockey teams. A national championship team would come over here and, if I'm being honest, probably beat every team in our league. And he was a captain there. He was a top scorer his senior year, and he's a good hockey player, really good hockey player. And I think he'll play in all situations for us. No doubt about it. And I think he has the ability, like, he was in Florida last year, really tough spot to be. They had really, really stacked team, from the year before. And they ended up, I think they won the Kelly Cup, I believe, again.
Yeah.
And, I think he was maybe playing in a role that maybe didn't suit him, or maybe he wasn't used to, but, he's certainly going to be a go-to guy here for us, and, really excited for him. And he is smart, 200 foot, but again, I think I remember talking to Kooks this summer, when you refer to a D-man as a steady Eddie, sometimes it can be taken out of context, right? And you mean the ways. And I think sometimes when you refer to a guy as a 200-foot guy, sometimes it can be taken out of context as well. But he can PK. He's good defensively. He's responsible. He's got the ability to put up some good numbers for us. He'll play on the power play. So he's going to log a lot of minutes for us, and he'll be a big piece for us.
Excellent. And another guy that reminds me a little bit of you, Stewie, in your playing days is Ian McNulty, because Ian's fast. He can be a pain in the butt to play against. He can certainly put the puck in the net. I mean, he's got 55 goals over the last 2 seasons. I mean, you must have been really thrilled when he emailed over his signed contract.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like I said, I think he scored every single game we played against Guildford. I mean, I remember saying it last year. I'm like, man, I won't lack of a word, but scores every night against us, especially at the Sky Dome. I mean, every time they came in Coventry, he was scoring, and he plays with grit, and he plays in those hard areas. He gets under your skin, and I think just due to his speed and his willingness to play in those hard areas, and he naturally annoys guys, and I think it's good. And, like you mentioned, 55 goals is a lot of goals in 2 seasons. And that's, last season he battled a bit of an injury as well for, a couple months, and a pretty good one as well. And played through, maybe affected his numbers quite a bit. So, he's going to be a massive player for us this year, and, he'll feature on that top line to start for sure.
And you will have aspirations naturally of wanting to try and crack into that top 4. You'll obviously want to be a contender for silverware. And probably the most competitive guy I've seen in a Blaze jersey in a while is Kim Tolberg. And he's the kind of guy you can build a line around. And he's just the kind of guy you have to bring back to a team, because he was phenomenal for us last year.
Yeah, he was on and off the ice, right? He's he plays the right way. He's a competitor, with skill as well. And, off the ice as well. He's such a big piece of our dressing room. Talk about, good energy in the room. He's that definition. And I don't know if you've seen Ted Lasso at all, but I compare him to, I forget his name now, but I compare him to the Mexican guy in Ted Lasso. That comes flying in every day, just full of energy, laughing, smiling. And, there's days where, I'm sitting in that office, and, Kim is the first one at the rink by a country mile every morning, in terms of the players. And, he just pops in, "Hey, coach," and just lifts you up just naturally. And, I think that runs through our dressing room as well. And, he's played at good levels, the Svensson level, and he's been successful there, and came in last year, and he was great for us. So yeah, it was a no-brainer to try and get him back, and thankfully we were able to.
Yeah, for sure. And it's good to have guys like Kimmy back, because crikey, the league's looking really good again this year, Stu. And I think maybe we take that for granted a little bit. Every year we say, "Oh, the league looks good again this year. Oh, the league looks good again this year." But crikey, some of the boys that teams are bringing over, even maybe some of your traditional lower spenders, is really really interesting.
Yeah, it's I think it's gonna be a tough one. I mean, on paper, I think the league looks about as good as I've seen it. If I'm being from top to bottom, like you mentioned, I think Dundee looks certainly a lot better. Manchester, I think, is going to have a lot up front, and they look better. I think Fife early on, they still got some a few pieces to announce and find, but I think, they certainly look like they're going to be better. And, if you get to the big clubs, I think again, on paper, Glasgow massively improved. Nottingham looks like they'll be stronger. So, it's that crazy thing, but not everyone can be stronger, right? With 10 teams battling. A lot of time it comes down to, just who gels early on. Injuries always play a factor in this league with the lack of ability to find extra guys and bring players in to fill those injuries. So, staying healthy is always a massive thing, especially because, it's early on where if you can find that success, it kind of, leads you in the right direction and you pick up that confidence. Whereas, if it goes the other way and then you pick up a couple injuries, it's tough to bring yourself back out of it. But it's certainly looking like a tough league for sure.
Yeah, I think I was talking to Ian about this last week. It was weird last year in some ways that it was the top 5 and the bottom 5, and there was a massive gulf in between. Whereas on paper this year, it looks like everyone's going to legitimately have a chance to beat everyone else every given night. And that's what the league wants in many ways, Stewie, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, and for sure. And, you obviously, Belfast has got to be the preseason favorites with what they've done the past couple of years. And they've brought back a lot of, guys and added a lot of good pieces. But again, sometimes you don't know how that's going to go. Those guys like Conway and Goodwin that have dominated the league for 2 years, they're not always, in terms of skill, you can maybe replace them, but that connection, you don't replace AC/DC just like that by bringing in 2 new skilled players. Like it doesn't automatically happen. And, that Jeff Legui and Talbot and, these duos that we've seen over the years. And, maybe I'm going more back to my playing days, but, it's not easy to replace these guys when they move on. So, it'll be interesting to see. And I think the fans are in for an exciting year for sure.
For sure. Stu, do you have anything else to throw at Coach while we've got him, or should we wrap things up?
I think it's a really good point there. Is like the game is played on ice, not paper. We can't all look at elite prospects and know exactly who's going to be first through 10th. And I'm really excited for this year because I think it's going to be, certainly the first few months are going to be some fascinating hockey.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be really exciting. And I think night in, night out, you're going to see upsets all over the league. That's how. And I think there's going to be no automatic game. Maybe the advantage some of the bigger clubs have is to keep those rosters fresh with injuries and stuff like that. But, I think at full strength, I think there's going to be a lot of competition. And, if teams can stay healthy, I think it'll be exciting for sure.
For sure. Stewie, thank you so much again for putting some time aside to do this. As always, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Always a pleasure.
Well, and just like that, the summer is pretty much done. We've got a couple of weeks to get the housing sorted, get the kit all ready to go, and get the training camp plan together. So I guess, guys, thank you for tuning in once again, and we really will see you in just a couple of weeks. Bye for now.